Well, October 23rd was my diagnosis date, so this year will be 9 years.
Wow.
9 years. I was 29 years old, and I had found a lump in the shower. So I went through, like most women do, the 3-week period of waiting and getting testing and then having a biopsy. And my doctor was in Manhattan at the time, and my mother was with me, and we walked in and he said, "I'm so sorry to tell you this, but you have cancer." And that was after everyone had said to me, "You're too young to have breast cancer." Well, then began a lot of doctor's visits to decide what to do. And there were a number of opinions, but I ended up being part of a clinical trial in New York. First I had a lumpectomy, and then following that I had chemotherapy, I had radiation, and then I was also part of the original clinical trial for Herceptin. So I was given Herceptin for an entire year. And when I was diagnosed, I had just started graduate school, so I was 1 month into graduate school when I was diagnosed. So pretty much through my entire graduate school program, I was also in treatment. My mother was really my rock. My mother was with me for every single chemotherapy treatment. She would come and stay with me for the weekends after chemo. She went to many radiation treatments, all of my surgery, and even a lot of the Herceptin treatments. So she was really everything to me, my best friend, my caregiver, and someone to lean on. The nice thing about getting breast cancer is that you meet a lot of wonderful women. And shortly after my diagnosis, I got very involved not only with Komen, but the Young Survival Coalition, and served on their executive board for a couple of years. So I met many, many young women through that have had breast cancer, newly diagnosed with breast cancer. And in the work that I do as a therapist, I work with breast cancer patients every day. I found friends that had friends that put me in touch with others that understood what I was going through. I went for therapy, like many people need to. I use support groups myself, so everyone has a different flavor for what will work for them, but just lean on somebody. So before Eric and I even went on our first date, which was kind of a blind date, we met online, I found out that a very good friend of mine, who's also a breast cancer survivor, was his patient. He's a chiropractor. And told me, and she's been sick with stage 4 for a long, long time, that he comes to her house on a weekly basis to work on her, and I was touched by that before I even met him. Okay, so we go out on our first date, and by our second date, I was in the midst of a breast cancer scare again. They had found something. And on our second date, it was the night before I was slated to have a biopsy. And in the car, I just lost it, and I started to cry, and I told him the whole story of the fact that I was a breast cancer survivor. That's how I knew his friend, through our organizations, and that I was going through a scare. And oh, by the way, because I've had chemotherapy, I might not be able to have children. So I'm just telling you this all on our second date so that it's all out of the way. And we were sitting in the car, and he gave me a huge hug, and here we are 3 weeks from being married.
You know, she's just so intelligent and beautiful, and she's just so tender and compassionate. She's got so many great qualities. It's endless. I mean, I just love everything about her. Every single thing.
I didn't even have to pay him to say that.